Hello and welcome to Wave Clinical Support. I see from your case you've been diligently working with your patient to fit her with rigid multifocal lenses, and I must applaud you for using a near center lens. As you know, in the contact lens world, we're all ready to fit near center with soft lenses, but we always seem to go with distance center for rigids. And I'm glad to see that you've branched out to try the center near. I have fit a number of them. I fit actually much more of the distance near or distance center, and that's probably because I've been pretty successful with those. I haven't always felt the need to go to a center near, but on those patients I have fit, they are successful. And as you know, after going through 8 pairs of lenses with this patient, they can be quite challenging. So I applaud you for keeping with it. I've been there many a times, and I know it's very costly and time-consuming. So I applaud you for being committed to that. With that said, I hear you from your clinical request that sounds like you've nailed the vision. Sounds like you're doing great with that. Now the question is, how do we get better comfort? And of course, the first thing would make sure your review is make sure this patient doesn't have an underlying dry eye issue. I found the hard way that can be a big problem. I find myself chasing tails occasionally, trying to figure out what's wrong with the lens fit, and realize that I overlooked some dry eye considerations, especially a rheumatoid history, rosacea history, meibomian gland, the usual culprits that come into play with these types of lens fits. With that said, assuming those things aren't a huge issue, the question is, what can we do with this lens design to see if we can improve the comfort? Well, if we look, I noticed when I looked at your 2 designs, your last designs for each eye, especially we'll start with this right eye. I wasn't quite sure from your clinical request if both eyes are dry. I'm assuming they are. Given the design that you have in both of these lenses, I would assume that they're both dry for different reasons. Or similar reasons, I guess. If we look at the right eye, as you know, you have a little bit of a steeper fit, and I'm sure that helps it center quite well, but unfortunately, as you know, we've got most of the bearing or the weight of this lens down here in about this last millimeter of the cornea, so you tend to get, I think, more of what I call a cookie cutter fit with this one. And when you put the lens on, it's probably reasonably comfortable. As the day goes on, it's going to suck on it here, it's going to be hard to get out, it's probably going to dry out, be sore, and a little bit uncomfortable. So I think what you need to do somehow is redistribute this weight a little bit more. Traditionally, if you recall, between the blue and pink ball or purple ball, we tends to be the main landing zone for these lenses, and with this one we tend to be a little bit further out. And so there's a couple ways to get that back down. One, as you know, is to just bump up this peripheral area here and just keep bumping it up until the lens comes down. Or you could just go back to your tools and redesign the lens. Use current setting. While that's doing that, we're going to look over at your left lens. I could see you've already kind of done that. You kept this left lens more aligned, and it really looks perfectly aligned over here. My thought on this left lens is you probably just are so well aligned that you don't have much tear pumping mechanism going on here. So I would probably find a way to bring up this peripheral curve. If you want to be conservative, you could bring it up the vertical meridian. Just get a little more of a tear pump on that top side, pump up a few degrees. And just bring it all up a little bit higher. As you know, this patient doesn't have a whole lot of corneal cylinder. You might even be able to get by with a RSIM design, which will naturally probably tend to give you a little bit more edge lift. And surprisingly, even though it looks like a huge difference, this lens will probably fit really, really nicely on that eye. So I think what you're really probably overall not getting a lot of tear pumping going on underneath that lens on either side. And if you have anyone, if this patient is tending toward a little bit of a dry eye history or potential for dry eye, it just exaggerates the problem. So I would do everything you can to bump up that, get that edge lift up there. You could also consider adding in plasma treatment, which sometimes helps. Maybe look at some of the solutions that you're using, see if there's any way you can get a little bit better performance there. Just a couple other comments. As you know, if you've already nailed this lens and the vision, which is great, and if you start playing with this fit, trying to loosen it up a little bit more, all bets are off a little bit with the placement of those centers. I think you're still going to be fine with them, but I think at the point from what you're requesting, it sounds like this patient is not being successful from a fitting standpoint, and unless you get that under control, she's probably not going to wear the lenses anyway, so I think you really got to work on that. So one other comment about ordering extra lenses. I don't know if you've gone beyond 8. What I found when I'm working in Wave, when I go beyond 8, when I go to save it, it tends not to save it. It seems like Wave only tends to show 8 lenses. And so what I find myself doing usually if I'm going to go above 8 is usually deleting the first couple of ones that I know are no longer successful. Maybe get rid of the first couple of designs, but keep in mind when you do that, Wave relabels the lenses. So if you get rid of lens number 1 and 2, number 7, 8 become 5 and 6, and so it gets a little confusing. So what I usually do is I usually make a copy of those Wave lenses by exporting them to a different place on the hard drive, so that way in case I somehow mess something up or overwrite something, I've got a backup of those last designs. Keep in mind that that number 8 lens will probably become number 7 or 6 depending on how many you delete, and then it renumbers it. And so just keep that in mind when we look at the design. And usually when you click on it, it'll show that when it was ordered, what date it was ordered, and that is one way for you to kind of double check if that was the correct one or not. So just thought I'd give you a heads up in case you haven't gone over that number 8 lens yet. So with that said, I think you'll be successful with these. It sounds like you're 95% of the way there, and I wish you well. I hope you can get that comfort level improved for your patient. Anyways, thank you for contacting Wave Support, and have a great day.